Welcome to this May 2026 Current Affairs Explainer. We're going to take a pretty fascinating journey today through the actual mechanics of Indian democracy. We're starting from the absolute highest levels of judicial philosophy in the Supreme Court, and we're going to work our way all the way down to the grassroots data that measures progress in local villages. It's a complete macro to micro look at how governance and justice are actually functioning in India right now. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, constitutionalism versus majoritarianism. Second, defending the basic structure. Third, the power of PILs. Fourth, when PILs are misused. And finally, measuring grassroots progress. Section 1. Constitutionalism versus majoritarianism. Recently, the Supreme Court made a really profound observation. Majoritarianism simply cannot trump constitutionalism. It's a massive philosophical battle. You've got constitutionalism, which is this bedrock idea that government power has to be strictly limited by fundamental principles and constitutional rules. And then you have majoritarianism, where the preferences of the numerical majority just dictate all collective decisions. What the court is really reminding us here is that pure numbers, no matter how big, cannot overrule the foundational rules that protect all of us. So how exactly does the Constitution build these defensive walls against absolute majority rule? Well, think of Article 14 as the absolute bedrock, upholding the rule of law and making sure nobody is above it, regardless of popularity. Then you've got Articles 13, 32, and 226 acting as the guards. They ensure judicial review, empowering courts to just strike down unconstitutional actions. It actively promotes inclusiveness, and we've also got Articles 29 and 30 acting as defensive shields for minority rights. And, of course, Article 50, which preserves the whole structural integrity by separating the judiciary from the executive. These aren't just legal numbers, They form a literal fortress for our democracy. Section 2. Defending the basic structure. Now, understanding those defensive walls conceptually is one thing, but how have they actually held up in practice? Let's walk through this timeline of liberty to see how it all builds. Back in 1973, the legendary case of Ananda Bharati case laid down the law that Parliament's power is not absolute. They absolutely cannot alter the Constitution's basic structure. Fast forward to 2006, the Rameshwar Prasad case reinforced that constitutionalism actively abhors absolutism. It's based on objectivity. Jump to 2017 with K.S. Puttaswamy, where the fundamental right to privacy was firmly guaranteed under Article 21, creating a massive shield against arbitrary state intrusion. And then in 2018, Navtej Singh Johar decriminalized homosexuality. Notice how in that last one, constitutionalism went out directly over prevailing social prejudices. It's a perfect example of protecting individual dignity against majority opinion. Section 3. The power of pills. All right, zooming in a bit. To understand how everyday citizens actually access this grand constitutional justice, we have to talk about a pretty dense legal term, locus standi. Traditionally, this basically meant only the person directly injured could file a suit. But what if that person is paralyzed by poverty or disability or just total helplessness? Well, enter the PIL, the public interest litigation. This idea originated in the 1960s in the US and was championed later in India by Justices V.K. Krishna Iyer and P.N. Bhagwati to totally change the game. Now, any public-spirited individual or group can step up and approach the court on behalf of those who can't. And this brilliantly illustrates how PILs have historically driven massive, tangible social change across the nation. In 1979, the Huisina Khatun case, our first recorded PIL, stepped in to protect under-trial prisoners. In 1987, the environmental activist MC Mehta used a PIL to literally force the closure of industries dumping toxic waste into the Ganga River. And in 1997, the Vishaka case used a PIL to establish binding guidelines against workplace sexual harassment. These litigations have quite literally shaped modern Indian society. It's a really inspiring history, but it brings us to a harsh reality and a crucial question. What happens when a noble tool designed for the public good and the voiceless, gets hijacked for personal, political, or corporate gain? Section 4. When PILs are misused. The Supreme Court has actually expressed some incredibly strong disapproval lately because this noble system is actively being weaponized. We're seeing private interests masquerading as public grievances, basically companies settling personal vendettas. We're seeing ambush PILs, deliberately filed just to obstruct legitimate litigants from accessing the courts. There's judicial overreach that blurs the separation of powers. We're even seeing a dissociation of rights and relief, meaning courts declare these massive rights without actually granting tangible relief.
And perhaps worst of all, we're seeing purely political motives. Petitions filed just to target opponents, delay government initiatives, or just grab a quick media headline.
3,500. That is the staggering number of pills currently pending in the Supreme Court right now. To put that into perspective, this sheer volume of often frivolous or motivated petitions severely worsens the already massive judicial backlog. It's actively delaying justice for the people who truly, desperately need it.
So to stop this hijacking, the Supreme Court laid out some really strict guidelines back in 2010. Courts now have to rigorously verify the petitioner's credentials and make sure there is a genuine, larger public interest at stake. Plus, you can't just jump straight to litigation anymore. Petitioners have to exhaust alternative avenues and demand action from authorities first. And no more hearsay, cases require ironclad documentation like news reports, investigations, and sworn affidavits. The whole goal here is to filter out the noise and protect the integrity of genuine PILs.
Section 5. Measuring grassroots progress.
Okay, we spent a lot of time up in the high courts today. Let's transition all the way down to the grassroots level. And the crucial point here is the sheer mind-boggling scale. We are looking at tracking progress across 2.6 lakh gram panchayats, local village councils, across India. How do you even begin to measure local democracy across a landscape that massive and diverse?
Well, the answer is the Panchayat Advancement Index, or PAI 2.0, recently released by the Ministry of Panchayati Raj. It's actually a brilliant instrument of localization. It takes 17 massive abstract global sustainable development goals from the UN and aggregates them into 9 highly relevant thematic areas for rural Indian life. It essentially takes those abstract worldwide goals and distills them into measurable local targets for our villages.
Based on those themes, every single one of those 2.6 lakh gram panchayats is evaluated and slotted into one of 5 performance categories. You have learners scoring under 50, all the way up through aspirants, performers, and frontrunners, right up to achievers scoring 90 and above for exceptional governance. This isn't just guesswork anymore. It creates a completely data-driven environment where local self-governments know exactly where they stand, which is absolutely crucial for fostering accountability and continuous rural development.
We have covered some incredible ground today in this explainer, from the Supreme Court defending the Constitution's basic structure against pure majority rule, to the real power and the pitfalls of public interest litigations, all the way down to how we painstakingly score the progress of a single village. It leaves us with a pretty vital question to ponder. Are we, as citizens, actively utilizing these incredible democratic tools to build a better, more accountable society? Or are we simply sitting back and letting the numerical majority decide our fate? Thanks for joining me, and keep learning.